Did you know that in Despicable Me 3, Illumination took one of the biggest shots at Disney in the history of animation? This happens in the scene where Lucy and Gru are in the mini submarines and two minions are right behind. And when the minions pass by, they literally run over a fish, so much so that one of its fins is left behind. The detail is that one of these fish was a clownfish, one was slightly larger and the other smaller. A clear reference to Finding Nemo. So, the Minions just killed Nemo's dad in that scene. Seriously, Minions really have a knack for being villains. This was just the first of the 22 hidden secrets in Minions and the 3 Despicable Me movies that we're gonna show you today. In the Minions movie, we see that the main trio of little yellow creatures arrives at the Villain Expo. And there are indeed many stands of things that only villains love. And as soon as they enter, next to Dr. Nefario's stand, where Gru and his mother are, we can see a stand of, believe it or not, gardening. Except it's filled with gigantic carnivorous plants. And if we go back to Despicable Me 2, we'll see that these are exactly the same variety of carnivorous plants that Gru has in his house. Speaking of plants, we can see that one of the decoration items in the villain's house when he adopts the girls is a painting where we see a kind of art of a sort of flower, where instead of the button of a beautiful rose, there's the biological hazard symbol. And Gru's taste hasn't changed since then, as in the trailer for the 4th movie, we see that the sinister painting is still there, in the same place. In Minions 2, we find another reference to one of the good movies from the pop culture of the 2000s. When Knuckles enters the temple to steal the medallion to control the beasts, he fights against numerous creatures made of golden pieces. This is a reference to the movie Hellboy and the Golden Army, released in 2008, where the hero does the same thing, only against much larger beings also made of gold. Gru's room in the second Minions movie is full of incredible little details. As we mentioned in another of our videos about references in Minions and Despicable Me movies, the Vicious Six is inspired by a group of supervillains from Spider-Man stories. And proof of that is exactly the wallpaper in Gru's room, where we see the Vicious Six poster pasted on the wall. Also in Gru's room, we can see that his alarm clock is, believe it or not, a time bomb. I knew his mother didn't like the boy so much, but this is too much. Thank goodness that alarm never went off. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a Despicable Me franchise. Furthermore, we see that the decoration is in the best villainous style, as the dresser where the time bomb is located is a small safe, where Gru surely must have practiced his little break-ins. If you're into Despicable Me and Minions, do the following. Subscribe to the channel here, so you don't miss our videos about animations, movies, and series. Since we talked a little while ago about Spider-Man, we found another reference to the webhead in the movie about Gru's origin. When little Gru goes to the cinema, he releases a stink bomb inside the place. If you've watched Spider-Man from 2002, you'll notice that Gru's bomb has a very similar design to the bombs, also green, of the Green Goblin. When the Minions start to protest with Gru that now he's too good, one of the images shows Gru holding a small gold statue. This is a reference to one of the most famous scenes in the Indiana Jones franchise, where we see the character picking up a very similar gold statue. Or, Indiana Jones found it, delivered it to the museum, and Gru stole it. Who knows, it might be another tease with Disney, now that the Indiana Jones franchise is also owned by the company. In Despicable Me 3, the Minions ended up in prison and simply became the big shots among the inmates. And there's a scene where they, out of nowhere, start performing choreography and dancing, all dressed as prisoners. This is a historical reference to one of the greatest musical phenomena of all time, Elvis Presley. In the Jailhouse Rock music video, the King of Rock and his group popularized a choreography where they're all dressed as prisoners, hence the inspiration for the Minions dance scene in jail. One of the few things we understand that the Minions can say is banana, which is practically a universal word and a fruit they really like to eat.
Banana, ba 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 banana. Oh.
But did you know that the Minions language actually exists? In fact, it's a mix of several different languages: French, Russian, Spanish, Korean, English, Italian, and Quechua, an indigenous language. So they're literally polyglots. Who would have thought? You surely remember that when Gru is training to talk to Lucy, a phone number is shown written on the back of a card. What you don't know is that this number actually exists, and at the time of the movie at least, if you called it, you would hear a recorded message from Gru saying it was a prank and that you had fallen for it. So, Did you ever call that number? Now, let's talk about another joke Illumination made with Disney. When Knuckles and Gru go to the villain bank, look at the scout uniform Gru is wearing. Without a doubt, this is a reference to Russell, one of the protagonists of the movie Up. I have to say, that was a great reference. Still in the same scene at the evil bank, we can see that Mr. Perkins was still working as a simple cashier at that time, which means he moved up a few positions over the years in the evil bank hierarchy, becoming its manager when we meet him in Despicable Me. But what's even more noteworthy is that he shows Knuckles a photo of his little son. For the less attentive, this is the same photo he looks at when we find out that Vector is actually his son in the franchise's first movie. So Vector isn't exactly young either.
Hey, Dad. You wanted to see me?
I don't know about you, but despite the owner's son being Gru's rival, I find him super funny and entertaining. If you also like this character from the franchise, comment below, #Vector. When Gru goes to the evil bank for a loan, while he talks to Mr. Perkins, we see that there's a painting behind him with Mr. Perkins himself depicted in a very noble manner. This is a representation of one of the most famous paintings that really exists of Napoleon, who was one of the great conquerors of Europe, who proclaimed himself King of France in the 18th century. Can't find it, can ya? When Dave pedals his tricycle at an absurd speed, we see him overtaking a motorcyclist with colors of the United States flag. That guy on the motorcycle is a reference to the greatest stuntman of movies and acrobatics, Evel Knievel. Evel broke his bones in his stunts 433 times, still holding the record for this in the Guinness Book. And as far as I'm concerned, he'll always be the record holder for broken bones. To finish the tribute to the greatest stuntman of all time, Dave even completes an extremely dangerous leap between the two ends of a cliff. Making the reference even clearer, we can see Evel Knievel's name written on the ramp he descends. And we can also see the former stuntman performing the stunt back there. Did you know that the appearance of the Minions was inspired by two groups of super famous mini characters from pop culture? The first group is the Jawas, those little creatures from Star Wars who spoke a language very similar to the Minions. And the second are the Oompa Loompas from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Now, that's some old school inspiration, don't you agree? If there's one thing the Minions do well, besides being great villain henchmen, it's singing. And when they're at the talent show in the voice style, we can notice that the whole moment is actually a big reference to another Illumination film franchise, Sing, the same one where we see animals participating in a musical talent show. After all, advertising their own movies is one of Illumination's specialties, as we've mentioned in our other videos that you can check out on our Despicable Me playlist. Remember in the second movie when the Minions were turned into small purple monsters that destroyed everything? The choice of the color purple wasn't accidental, as it's the color inversely proportional to yellow on the color scale. This was done to demonstrate how they were completely the opposite of the cute Minions we know. In fact, would you believe me if I said the appearance of the evil purple Minions was inspired by one of the cutest characters in the world of cartoons? We're talking about Tweety Bird, the one always chased by Sylvester the cat. In one Looney Tunes episode, he drinks a potion and ends up turning into a sinister monster. Hence the resemblance of the Minions to the character in its monstrous version. Still talking about the Minions, here's some information you definitely didn't know. Officially today, the number of Minions existing in the world is 899, which means there may be one Minion lost somewhere in the world, which would be number 900. Can you imagine if in some next movie they go in search of the lost Minion? I would love to see that movie. These were the 22 secrets you didn't know in the Minions movies and the 3 Despicable Me movies. I love watching these movies. Seeing Gru, the girls, and everyone is always so cool and fun. We picked out 2 videos that you might enjoy to keep watching with us. Just pick one of the 2 and click. Thanks!